This is the Lyndsay Stafford Show.
Welcome back to the Lyndsay Stafford Show, where we are featuring a series on local legends here in Middle Tennessee, hearing from local business owners, entrepreneurs, their stories, their highs, their lows, their ups, their downs, and their advice. And today I have with me Jeff Graves, and he said this, not me, but Graves like what you're buried in. I hate to start the show off like that. Jeff Graves, and Jeff is with Smith Wynd Capital. Did I say that right?
That's correct, yes.
It's Friday at 2. So the wine works out. I said wind earlier, but it's Smith Wynd Capital. Jeff is a local business owner. And can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
So we are a CPA firm that does wealth management. And so we work holistically with our clients to not only do their taxes, but implement tax mitigation strategies, tax saving strategies, and then implement them through investing and options that are available there. We do also business valuation, M&A work as well in the midst of that, to really provide a holistic approach to our clients to help them in that area.
Very exciting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We get to finances and taxes, and it's not an exciting world. But in all seriousness, how did you get into this?
So I was a high school teacher, and felt that it was time to move on from that, and it was good timing when I did. But had sort of done the Dave Ramsey thing. We had just gotten out of debt, except for our house, and really wanted to help others with financial coaching, help them learn how to manage their money. But unless you're Dave Ramsey, it's a pretty hard thing to make a living just doing financial coaching. And I had met a financial advisor when I ran for city council in Spring Hill, and just got to talking to him about what it was like to be a financial advisor, and just started going through that process with that. And next thing you know, I got hired and made a transition.
So did you go to school for?
No, I don't know that I've actually done anything I went to school for. So I have a undergraduate degree in public relations with a minor in history. And then I went to and got my master's degree in divinity theology to be a pastor. And down the road, that just some things there didn't work out. And so went back to school and got the equivalent of another master's degree to teach. And so I just have always been interested in investments, understanding the tax side as well, to find the loopholes that can benefit, and the ways that you can work around things to benefit people, to keep very much a believer in only giving Uncle Sam as much as you have to give him, not a penny more.
Amen to that, preacher.
Really just trying to figure out ways to make sure that, I pay my taxes, but no more.
Yeah, so, not more than you have to.
Yeah.
Did y'all do your debt-free scream with Dave Ramsey after you got debt-free?
No.
There's still time.
There is actually. I used to listen to his podcasts in the car with my son so much that one Saturday they were upstairs cleaning the house, doing their chores, and they finished, and all of a sudden we heard from downstairs, my son yelled, "I'm debt-free!" And so we cracked up. And so for his 7th birthday, his request was he wanted to go meet Dave Ramsey. So we went up there and watched his show, and he got to meet him. So
super cool.
Yeah.
You can still go back and do it.
Yeah, probably won't.
No. Yeah. It's right down the street from us.
It is.
It's right here in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you have a pretty interesting history. What did you teach?
So I taught government and U.S. history.
Okay. So it all does kind of go together a little bit about what you've done in the past and what you're doing now.
A little bit, yes.
So when you made the journey from being a high school teacher and woven in there is your time as a pastor, which you're still doing, what was it like to make that jump to going out on your own from being an employee? Because that's a big change.
It is a big change. And so as I talk with clients and people who are considering making that change or early in the stages, one of my favorite things, and I picked it up from listening today, but is really before you jump off the dock, get the boat as close as possible. And so as I considered making a change and looking at that, one of the reasons that I went with the company I went with was because of the way they structured their new employees as they built their business. They provided a guaranteed income, and they slowly worked that back. Basically, the income came down as your business grew, and that. So it wasn't a transition from, well, I know I've got this income coming in, and I can budget, I can plan, to, oh crap, I don't know where it's going to come from. So I was able to slowly make that transition and really sort of ease into the process instead of just going out there like a lot of people is just kill what you eat, So there was a in that instance, I feel like I got the boat as close as possible to make the transition because it really was a second career. And so having a family, having kids that, I had to provide for, I couldn't just do it maybe the way some people are able to go out and just, to take that transition, or I wasn't willing to take the risk of doing that. So there's the happy medium sometimes, right? You can either go all in one way or maybe do what you did. And so what does that look like now for you? So now I left the company I started doing investments with a little over 2 years ago and moved to Smith Wynd in partnership with them as we opened another office. And it's now I was able to transition a lot of my book of business and to add to it. So it really, at that point, my business was established so that from the income perspective, I was fortunate that I didn't really have to worry too much about making that transition again and really just focusing on serving my clients and making sure I'm doing what's best for them.
Sure. So what I love about your journey and your story is there's not just one way to do it, right? And sometimes you can be too fearful to do a big jump of starting your own thing, but you found a way to get there. And that's what it's all about. When you have your own business, it's about figuring out how do you make that work. Yeah. So talk to me about something that was a struggle or a challenge as you have gotten to the place you're at today.
Right. So I think, even when you transition and you go out on your own or you're starting something new, and even in what I did, I think the biggest part of it is risk mitigation. See, it's what we do for our clients now, is managing that risk, because no matter what you do, even if you're an employee for a business, there's risk involved in that. And the fact that that company could shut down tomorrow and there's no guaranteed paycheck, right? So it's all about managing risk, and putting yourself in a position to do that. And so, ask me the question. Yeah, I forgot. I forgot where I was going. I started talking about
We're talking about risk, and you're right. You have to, sometimes as entrepreneurs, you can just take not even consider risk. You're just doing it, right?
Right.
But I want to hear about something that was a struggle for you.
Okay.
One of your struggles.
Yes. No. So part of that risk is I had never done a job in, what would be considered sales. I had always worked for someone, never really had to worry about creating clients or, generating revenue. It was like I just showed up and I did my job and I went home with a paycheck. And I'm not a salesperson. Contrary to popular belief, people get to know me. And I'm an introvert at heart. I'd much rather sit in my house and not be around anybody. But I can't be. And so for me, not being a salesperson, not being someone that's just going to walk up to a random person and try to sell them on something or get business, that was a huge hurdle for me, because a lot of starting out in the investment world, and that is you've got to find clients. And you might have a few that come to you, but really you've got to put yourself out there and take that risk and go find those clients. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. And so part of that risk mitigation in that was knowing that about myself, but not letting that be an excuse to not do it. I had been through several different things in which we had generated a lot of relationships in the community. I was a high school teacher and a coach. My wife was a teacher and a coach in the community. Our church we had been at for about 10 years and had grown. So we had a lot of relationships there. I had one of the biggest things was I had run for office and actually won. But part of that was I had to go and knock on doors and put myself out there and tell people why they should vote for me, which translated really well into what I was doing. Because when I started, that was the way the company said, hey, go knock on doors. This is the best way to meet people. And so between all of that, in those different spheres, I had relationships. And as I told people, hey, here's what we're doing. We feel like this is sort of where God's leading us and we're going out. And a lot of those people responding like, hey, we'd love to help you. Like we want to move our stuff over to you or this, but then going out too. And I remember after knocking on doors for a while and the first person I met is like, yeah, like let's set up an appointment and I was like,
wait, what? Did they say yes?
I was like, holy crap, this actually works. Like this is the first person that I don't know that's going to trust me to do. Like it's great. All these other people that I knew that are trusting me to do business, but that's different than when it's someone you don't know. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing, or I can do this, and the encouragement that gives you. And so that was a struggle. And so really it became a matter of like, all right, figuring out that, if someone tells you no, it's not personal, right? You just have to be willing to control what you can control and to take those steps, and then, just keep moving on, right? There's, our company figured out that it takes this many no's to get a yes. And so it really became a mathematics problem, right? It was, you meet these many people, and of this many people, like you should get this. And so you just keep going until that works out. And so, but that was a struggle in the beginning, and I really had to get over because I want people to like me, right? And
it's human nature,
right? And so trying not to take it personal and realize like, hey, this is just business, and it's not personal. Them telling me no, and if they tell me no, I'm just going to go to the next person.
Yeah.
So
and the overcoming being afraid of rejection is probably the biggest thing that keeps people from being successful in an endeavor, because they hit that first wall. And I coach entrepreneurs lots and lots and lots. At this point, I've coached thousands of entrepreneurs. And when they hit that wall, it can knock them down so hard that they just can't get back up. And you have to have that mentality of, it's just like when you're learning to ride a bike, you are going to fall. You are going to fall many times before you learn how to ride that bike. And you have to go into a business endeavor with that mentality. Otherwise, you just won't succeed. It's just, you got to do it ugly. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things to say is like, you just have to do it ugly. You learn as you go. How has that changed you as a person getting past that? It still hurts to hear no. It's like, it never is not going to, it still hurts to get stung by a bee. You might not cry the same way you did as a kid when you get stung, but it still hurts. It still hurts. But how has that changed you as a person? It's one of those things like early on, and when you're first getting started and you hear no, it's like, oh man, can I do this? And you question yourself. And now, 6.5, 7 years later, it's not so much, can I do this? Because I am doing it, right? It is working. And now it's, and one thing you learn by people telling you no is not everyone's a good fit for you, right? And so they may be doing a favor by telling you no that you don't realize, even though you're like, man, I just need business so I can, stay in business, right? But not everybody's a good fit. And so now when someone tells me no, it's not me just trying to get them as a client. It's more I'm evaluating too in that conversation, like, are they a good fit for me? Like, are we going to work well together? Is this someone I want to spend my time with? Because if they're not going to pick up the phone when you call, or they're not going to return, like, I don't have time to go hunt them down and so I want to evaluate that. And then two, if they say no, it's, sometimes it still stings because it may be someone that you really want to work with. And it's someone like, man, I'd love, like, they're a cool person, or they would be a great client. They're an ideal client. And I'd really like to work with them. And they said no. And it's like, okay, then it's not more, it's just personal, but it's evaluating, like, what can I learn from that? Like, what can I do different next time when I have someone that's like that client, to where
all right, so this is how I approach that, and here's some of the things that I learned from that I can tweak, so that when I approach this other one, maybe I do it different, and it turns out that we can engage in business and we can have that relationship.
I love the reflections piece, because you have to, as you're growing and learning in business, you have to be able to stop and go, you can't fix everything, and every situation is not going to be perfect. At our house, I don't know, you have kids, so
Yes,
but it's kind of like, well, I didn't do that. Who did this? Who made this happen? The other day it was like the fridge got left open, just a crack, so it's like not closed. Well, it doesn't really matter who did it. Let's just talk about how do we not let that happen again.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't really matter, who did that. It's just, how do you prevent that from happening again? And that mentality is exactly what you're talking about. Looking at every situation and saying, I can't go back and change that, but how do I take that and move forward and become better in my role or as a person altogether because of that? Now, on the flip side, what's the best part about working for yourself and having your own business, other than the fact that you can wear a pineapple shirt on Friday and come to hang out with me and say, I got the whole afternoon, so sure, we can eat our Costa Vida catered tacos. Costa Vida, there's a little shout out for you, Brian, and hang out. But seriously, what's the best part?
So, I didn't own a shirt like this until about 2 months ago. And I decided it surprised my wife. I was a little adventurous. I bought a couple different shirts that were not necessarily pineapple shirts, but like this. And she's like, wow. I was like, well, maybe I'll try to be a little more modern. But really one of the exciting things about moving from teaching into working for myself. And now that I've worked for myself for 7 years, I told my wife shortly after this, I said, I don't know that I could ever go back to working for someone again. Because our kids were starting to get older. They were starting to get involved in more and more things. And so instead of, being tied up working, like, we wanted to be able to go to events at their school, right? Field day, fun run, whatever, like being able to go and not worry about, I got to take time off, or as a teacher, I've got to have someone cover my class, or I can only take it, I either got to take a whole half day off or a full day, or so being able to be more involved in the things that they were doing was a big motivator too. And then not having to, I was fortunate that, I had other friends that were starting that I met and are kind of like, and they were working 70, 80 hours a week trying to get started. And sometimes, that's what you've got to do to do it. But we were fortunate that I never had to do that. They would be out working on Saturdays trying to generate business. And I think I may have went out one Saturday and so we were fortunate, but being able to have that flexibility that, as long as I get my work done, I can set my own hours, right? It's not a matter of I've got to be here from, this time to this time and I can't leave. It's like, if I need to get out and go do something, or, run to the store, or go pick up something, or, go drop food off at the school for my wife, whatever it is, I have that flexibility. That being able to be more involved in what was going on with the kids and with the family, and to take off if we needed to, like if one of them got sick. So one of the things about being a teacher is, my wife and I were both teachers. When one of the kids got sick, it's not we fought over who got to stay home with the kid and take a day off from work. It was we fought over who was going to go to school, because it was more of a hassle to take off from school and stay home than it was because you had to find a sub, you had to do all this. So having that flexibility, like if they get sick or whatever, I can serve my wife in that way, and that, hey, I'm just going to go take care of it, and I can work from home because I don't have to be in a certain place. Like, I have the ability to do that. And so that was huge, and huge motivation in going out and trying to make this work.
And you found a different way. So I say oftentimes that time is our most precious commodity. Right. We will never get it back. I think it's undervalued. People don't realize how much it's worth until you don't have it, or till you're looking back at something. But in my career, I traveled for a long, long time. I had the central U.S. I was responsible for, and I was on a plane on Tuesday, and I didn't come home until Thursday night, and I was probably flying 2 or 3 times in between that. Yeah. And that was a lot of years. And when you live that life, you realize how much time is worth when you're home. And like you, that's my number one, is being able to have the flexibility to say, I'm going to make the decision to spend a half a day volunteering or spend a day doing whatever I want to do with my child or my husband or myself or whatever. And that is something that truly is one of the best rewards for being an entrepreneur. And you pay for it in other ways sometimes.
Yes.
But your journey, a lot of folks that I talk to, there's that long hustle of, I remember the nights where, I was working till 10 o'clock at night and I'd be up working again at 4:30 in the morning. And on Saturday mornings, I was in my office till noon or 1 o'clock. You figured out a way to do it that worked for you. And I love that story because there's a way for everybody.
Right.
There's always a way. You just have to find the way. Now, I want to ask you one more question and then I'll let you go because I know you got a party to get to with your pineapple shirt. But I want to know, what do you want to tell someone who is wanting to take that leap, or an entrepreneur that's struggling right now and just can't see their way through it? What do you want to tell them?
Obviously the biggest factor, if you're going to take a leap, I meet with friends and people, being really involved in our Chamber of Commerce here, that they're either just getting started or they're thinking about getting started, and they want to know, hey, does this sound like a good idea? And it's again, mitigate, and you can't foresee every risk and every situation is going to happen, but mitigate as much of those as you can. Get that boat as close to the dock as you can before you jump. And that might mean like you start doing it on the side and you build your business till you get that close enough to where you can make that leap. And I told people, like, I'm not your typical financial advisor or tax person the way I went about it, because one, A, I'm not a salesman. I hate salespeople. But B, I was fortunate enough to recognize that in most everything I do, I try to be very practical and pragmatic. Life motto is just don't make things harder than they need to be. And so I was very pragmatic and strategic of where I was going to start my business because of the relationships that I had built, and we had been really involved in the community. And so instead of trying to go somewhere else that might be more lucrative or have higher net worth people, I said, well, I know these people. And if I have relationships with them, and that's really what it was about, was those relationships. So be practical about what you're doing. Don't, and it's always good to get advice from other people. Nothing, well, I can't say nothing, but most things good are not created in a vacuum, right? Seek out people that you respect. Go find people that have done it before, and pick their brain. That was one of the biggest things I learned. Some friends and I, totally different from this, but we started doing some real estate deals and flipping houses and some of that stuff. And as we got into that and decided, hey, we might want to do this, I went and found people who have done it and said, tell us about it. And so doing that and being very practical, think about what is the best way you can do this, because, I was fortunate that I didn't have to work on Saturdays. It's not that I wasn't willing to, but I said, if I can do this, like when I started and was knocking on doors, I only did that for about 2 months because I was doing that. I was spending 5, 6, 7 hours a day knocking on doors, but I was also getting involved in our chamber, and I started getting business from the chamber and from these relationships. And I looked at this and said, well, I'm spending 6, 7 hours over here, and the time and the return on that is only this, whereas I can spend 2 hours over here and the return is this. It made so much more sense to approach it that way. Because, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Just because someone built their business or did it that way doesn't mean that's the way it's going to work for you. And so, mitigate your risk, seek advice, and then figure out what works for you. Because just because it's been done this way, or it's always been done this way, so what, right? It doesn't mean that's the way you need to do it, or that's the path that you're going to take to be successful. And then the other biggest thing is don't be afraid of failure. Failure is a chance for you to learn. Try something. If it doesn't work, say, okay, I'll learn from that. I'm going to change and I'm going to go this way now. So don't be afraid. Don't be so set in stone that it has to be done that way that you can't change and pivot.
So smart. I oftentimes will say, be persistent with your outcome, but be flexible with the path that you take to get there, because it may not be the path you thought you were going to take. You take another one because that's what works for you, but staying true to yourself. And the whole don't make it harder than it is, harder than it needs to be is really, sometimes we overcomplicate things. So that's great. Where can we find you?
So our website is www.smithwynd.com. That's WYND. And so we're there. We have an office in Spring Hill. We have an office in Cool Springs. And so we're there 5 days a week from 8:30 to 5. And so that's probably the best way. Phone number is 615-794-8881. And so we'd love to talk. If I can help, anybody wants to reach out that has questions about business, whatever we can do to help, be happy to do it.
One of the things I love that you said when I met you the first time, which we met through a mutual friend, was, I don't care about taking on people that have already built wealth. That's not that you won't, but that's not who you target. And I think a lot of times people that are new into the investing world, or maybe they just don't have a lot to invest or haven't done it, there's this feeling of, who am I to talk to an advisor? I don't have anything to advise on. And I work with a lot of young, newer business owners, and you hear that a lot. And you don't have that. There's not that barrier for you. Right. It's very just, if you want to start your journey, I'm here to help you.
Yes.
And whether you are starting with a lot or starting with a little, you're there for them, Jeff. So Jeff Graves with Smith Wynd. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Great to have you.